Next up this morning, we're going to the School of Health Sciences, and we have Dr. SarahJane Cullen to present to us on the health and performance of Irish jockeys. Thank you, SarahJane.
So I'm just going to give you an overview of our research that's going on in WIT at the moment, looking at, I suppose, improving the health and performance of jockeys. So I suppose you're going to think I'm pretty obsessed with jockeys by the end of my presentation, which I probably am. And that's more so because I fell into it in 2008 as part of my undergraduate research project. And then the Turf Club funded my PhD and my postdoc. So while exercise physiology and nutrition is my area of expertise or areas of interest, during my postdoc I would have, I suppose, started coordinating many other projects and got involved, I suppose, in anything that was going. I started lecturing down here in 2015 and then started hounding Susie and Louise at the time, and then more recently Aisling, trying to find funding because I wasn't able to do all the projects by myself. So I suppose that brings us up to today. We have a nice little Turf Club research group, I suppose, because they've always been our main funders. Dr. Adrian McGoldrick, who's the Chief Medical Officer of the Turf Club, and Dr. Giles Warrington, they would have been my PhD supervisors, and Gillian O'Loughlin, who's a dietitian. So we've been, I suppose, since 2008, the Turf Club research group. Then more recently, Dr. Ciara Losty in the Department of Sport and Exercise Science joined us, and now we have 3 PhD students all funded that are based in the Department of Sport and Exercise Science. So I suppose now all our research, or all jockey-related research in Ireland, is being conducted at WIT, which is pretty nice. Now we do have a multidisciplinary team. So Gillian's a dietitian, so we have a PhD on physiology and nutrition, we have a PhD on sports psychology, one more on strength and conditioning physiology. So I suppose while I'm the principal supervisor, I do tie in with all, I suppose, the other areas of expertise. And the main reason why we try to have a multidisciplinary approach is because of the jockey pathway. So throughout my PhD, I would have been working on this jockey pathway, which was identifying what jockeys need throughout their career in terms of support and education. And we, from technical, tactical, physical, mental and lifestyle, we now try to align our research with that. So it's not just that we're doing descriptive research, all our research is feeding back into this support network. So we have a dietitian, strength conditioning coach, sports psych and physio working, giving support services to professional jockeys at the moment up in the Racing Academy in the Curragh. So we're trying to, I suppose, provide evidence-based support services and everything specific to the industry. So all our research is tying back into that. So that's why it's very broad. But our 3 PhDs, I'll just give you an overview of them at the moment. So Michael Kiley is funded by the IRC Enterprise Partnership Scheme in conjunction with the Turf Club. And he's investigating the demands of racing. So I don't know if anyone knows about racing, but we don't know, I suppose, how hard at the moment a jockey's working. Do you know what are their heart rates? What's the intensity of exercise? We also don't know what exercise they're doing. It's an old-fashioned thing, you don't do weights because you put on weight. So the jockeys won't do any exercise generally apart from running in a sweatsuit. And then we've no fitness protocol out there. So there's research to show that if your fitness is low, you're at a greater risk of falling off a horse. So our guys take out jockey license and they just go out and race, or they might fall off a horse and then they get a medical and they can go back out and race. But are they physically fit enough to ride? So we don't know. So Mikey's PhD is, I suppose, looking at the demands of racing, so putting devices on guys out in races to see what their heart rates are, what's the energy expenditure, looking at blood lactate before and after a race. He's also doing interviews and questionnaires with jockeys to see what currently are they doing in terms of their exercise. And he's developing, I suppose, a standardised physical fitness protocol specific to the industry. So I'm not sure if people are familiar with the old fashion beep test, you do the 20-metre shuttle run test. That's not specific to a jockey, so it has to be specific. So the key outputs, I suppose, we'll be able to inform the training guidelines. So the S&C coach up in the Turf Club, he'll know exactly what training to do, make sure the guys are physically prepared for racing, and we'll have a fit to ride protocol that if someone falls off or they want to take out a licence, are they fit enough to ride? The second PhD is a Turf Club fully funded by the Turf Club, and Lewis King is doing this PhD. So back in 2015, Mark Enright came out in the media, I suppose, with mental health issues, and it was the first time anyone had discussed this in the world of horse racing. So Dr. Adrian McGoldrick got in touch and said we need to do a study. So just before I start working here, I got in touch with Dr. Ciara Losty, and we did kind of a preliminary cross-sectional study, I suppose, just trying to figure out what's the prevalence of mental health issues in the world of horse racing. And it did show, I suppose, actually 1 in 2 jockeys were displaying symptoms of depression, which is quite worrying. And the main predictors were the stress levels and also the risk of, or when they were injured, they were at a higher incidence. But we need to do a lot more research. So Lewis's PhD is looking at, I suppose, really the prevalence, to go back over that, because we are questioning, could 1 in 2 jockeys be displaying symptoms? That is very worrying. Looking at the main predictors, so looking at, making weight, athletic identity, so a lot more than just the predictors we previously looked at. Also looking at the issues and barriers, so the whole idea of the stigma. Why aren't jockeys reporting this? Like, why did it take one jockey to come out in the media before we even knew it was an issue? And then we'll be implementing some type of intervention and education programme, and hopefully that can roll out into the industry. Because we have the Sports Psych Masters here, and UL do too, and Giles Warrington is the head of department in physical education and sports science in UL, we'll be linking in with our master's students as well, and there'll be some spin-off projects because there's been no work done on mental health in jockeys yet, so it's a very new topic and there's loads to be done. So outputs will identify essential support strategies. So Dr. Losty's up there every week doing, I suppose, support with the jockeys. But like, we need to know if a jockey's injured, we need to pull them aside and give them support. Or if they're struggling with the weight, that's when we put an intervention in place. So we need to know exactly when to put our interventions in place. And really raising awareness, that's key, I suppose, amongst the industry. The last PhD we've going on at the moment is a WIT co-fund scholarship with the Irish Injured Jockeys Fund. So that's a charity, a registered charity with the industry, and it's for injured jockeys, and it's led by jockeys as well. So there's a prevalence of poor bone health in jockeys. So the majority of jockeys display osteopenia, which is a stage just before osteoporosis, which obviously is kind of worrying for, these are young guys, like they should have the strongest bones of their life. So, when they fall off, they might be more at risk of developing or getting a fracture. Then long term, what are their bones like in the future? And really, they don't care. They just want to know what's going on now. They're not thinking of the future. So, we can't, their lifestyles are so busy, they won't go off and do extra like weight-bearing exercise or change their diets. So what we do is we give them a monthly vitamin D supplementation. I suppose we're all very bad at, giving them a daily one, they're never going to take it. Sure, we don't really take our multivitamins every day. So we give them a monthly one, but we don't know if it's working at the moment. So the Irish Injured Jockeys last year purchased a DEXA scanner so we could have it in-house in the racing academy that jockeys can pop in and get their bones assessed, and then we can put appropriate interventions in place. So this PhD, Arthur Dunn, he's doing this PhD, and since 2008 we haven't actually done an update on bone health. So we've implemented loads of nutrition and exercise strategies. We don't know if they're working or not. So we're saying a lot of jockeys are osteopenic, but we don't actually know still. So he's going to do a comprehensive update on bone health status, do an intervention with vitamin D, see if this monthly vitamin D supplement is helping to improve their bones, and then long term, how is it affecting their bones? So he'll track them long term. And then outputs, it will give us, I suppose, an update where we're at. Just a couple of additional projects. We've linked in with DCU with an epidemiologist looking at injuries and falls. So Dr. Adrian McGoldrick, he tracks the falls and injuries over the years to see how they've been changing. We just did a study on concussion, looking at the jockeys' understanding of it. And there still seems to be a lot of under-reporting. Even though they know the signs and symptoms, they're not reporting it. They know the dangers, the risks. So even just from that, we're going to be developing a little video that they have to watch, and then they'll sign off. We have a project going on with JOCKEYS, a PhD student in UCC, looking at gut health so we can develop a probiotic for jockeys. And then body composition would be an area of interest of mine because it's part of my dissertation for my applied sports nutrition masters, looking at body composition of high performance athletes in Ireland. And we're really looking at comparing other weight category sports against jockeys like boxers and rowers. So why are we doing such a broad range of research? And I should say we have 2 undergraduate research students looking at amateur jockeys and their weight control practices as well, so it's great to get them involved. And the whole reason why we have such a broad range is just to tie into the jockey pathway and make sure everything's evidence-based and our support structures are all specific to the industry. Thank you.
Thanks so much, SarahJane. Does anyone have any questions for SarahJane?
Hi, SarahJane. Sorry. You were saying at the beginning very little is known at the moment in terms of jockeys, performance, activity, data, that kind of stuff. I was just wondering, from the investigations that you've conducted, have you kind of encountered any correlation in terms of performance with aerobic and anaerobic thresholds and things like that with jockeys, or is it even a consideration in terms of jockeys approaching a lactic threshold?
At this moment, we have no idea. So there was a study back in done in 95, literally just having a heart rate monitor on the guys, and it was only a couple of jockeys. And then a pilot study as part of my PhD, we put heart rate monitors on them, and it was just so preliminary. That's what the main part of that PhD study is. So it hasn't. That's at the end of the year that study will start. So it will be a big job then. But yeah, there's loads of questions. We need to know what's going on.
Any other questions?
I'm interested to hear that you're working on gut health, so
Yeah.
we should probably have a chat.
Yeah, definitely.
So why are you particularly interested in the gut health of jockeys? Is there something about them that predisposes them to gut problems or
Yeah,
something?
so Ciara O'Donovan, she's a PhD student in UCC working with JOCKEYS, and she has been looking at, I suppose, gut health in loads of different athletes, and particularly the Irish rugby team, the cricket team, and she's found loads of differences. So what they want to use is looking at, I suppose, is it the dietary habits that's causing the difference in gut health? And they can't, I suppose, suppose with jockeys trying to make weight and restricting their diet, they can then, it will explain more for them rather than just saying, you know, the rugby players and the cricket guys, and they've looked at swimmers as well, is it to do with exercise or diet? So jockeys are really kind of going to explain it for them, and then they're hoping to make a sport-specific probiotic. Now, I can't say I know that area too well. I'm learning about it currently.
I'm afraid we'll have to leave more questions to coffee. SarahJane, thank you so much.